Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Dara and welcome to my floral design studio. Today we are making a stunning spring arrangement, a dusty lavender spring arrangement. This is one of my favorite color palettes ever and I am completely obsessed with the way that this turned out. So let's get into it, shall we? I always start with the same tools as always. This is the Zenport shears, garden shears, and my Victorinox florist knife. This is the holy trinity. It's the three that I always use when making an arrangement. You can get away with using two tools, which would be the Victorinox florist knife and the Zenport shears. But if you're using heavier branches, you might need garden shears. So if you need to get away with two tools, I highly recommend the Victorinox florist knife and the Zenport shears. Starting off with this variegated, I believe this is a type of boxwood. My vendor didn't have a name on it and I didn't Google it, but maybe by the time I take this video, you can take a peek there in the description box below for the entire recipe. Every single item that I used to make this arrangement is linked down there for you, super easy access, and all of the tools and materials are also there in my Amazon store, individually linked for you, super easy, quick and snappy. So pretty much the way that I design, I always set my arrangements up with the same chicken wire grid. This is galvanized chicken wire, and I create 2 layers of chicken wire. This isn't the same that most florists who do kind of wild and airy arrangements would normally bunch their chicken wire up, but instead of bunching it, because we have a lot of stems going into this arrangement, I need as much room inside of the base as possible so that I can fit as many stems in there as possible, but also simultaneously creating space. So there's 2 sheets that are completely open. It's kind of like 2 squares. One that I would call a bottom layer that catches the ends of the stems, and then a top layer that I shape into a dome and then secure over top with 1/4 inch waterproof floral tape, and then also secure that on the top of the brim. If you need to see how to do this, I will link a video up in the right here for you so you can get an idea of that. This style of grid is particular to this type of design. This design that has a lot of stems in it or is pave in its nature. This arrangement is not pave. This is a little bit more wild. But because of the amount of stems, this is the exact grid that we're gonna use. So going in now with explosion grass, this is one of my favorite greens to use. It creates so much impact. And what I'm doing is dotting that around the negative spaces of the arrangement. So where the boxwood was not, I made shapes in clusters with the grass in the negative spaces. This is a little bit of an asymmetrical shape, kind of like a crescent moon, an asymmetrical crescent moon type of shape that I'm starting with. And then now I'm going in with the most beautiful leptospermum. My vendors called this blue lepto. This particular variety of leptospermum is so much more hardy than this traditional or more commonly used. Oh, the fragrance is just spectacular. It has a stunning, juicy, delicious honey fragrance to it, similar to wax flower. If you've ever smelled Australian wax, it has very similar fragrance there. It's got this beautiful honey-like scent. And again, this variety is so much more hardy than the other type of leptospermum. So The other type usually only lasts one day. The flowers shrivel out, and I really do not recommend using it for delivery work because unless you have a reputation for arrangements that don't last long and people expect that of your work, then, that's a good thing for your people to know. But I typically like to create arrangements that last as long as possible for people. So I try to use varieties that have longevity and hardiness to them. And this is a great alternative for that other type of leptospermum. Can't always get this variety, but since it's spring, there is an abundance of incredible local as well as imported flowers to use. And so spring truly is like one of the most epic times in terms of variety, color, texture. The abundance of materials available is just mind-blowing. So now I'm going in with waxflower, another, like I said, that honey fragrance, really special. I'm using my Zenport shears to clean off all of those little pieces of green foliage because those little pieces really create a lot of messy texture. So when you remove those, you edit down to the pure color of the flower, and it really allows that stem and that shape and that texture to shine. Unless you were going for a super messy look, that might actually look really cool if you were doing like a 2 variety flower arrangement. You could do a whole thing of that wax flower, just leave the green on, who cares, and then accent it with another flower. But because there's so much texture already in this arrangement, and I've already have my structure of greens set up, I want to focus more on the flowers. So that's what those Zenport shears are really good for, that fine detail work. You could not really do that type of fine detail work with the Victorinox florist knife or the garden shears because it's hard to explain, but it just doesn't do that fine little snipping. Now we have another fragrant flower. Oh my God. I really think this flower is pretty underrated. One of my favorites, it's called Stock. And this one, old-fashioned, very classic, has a beautiful spicy clove fragrance to it, similar to those old-fashioned traditional heirloom carnation varieties. I love, love, love that spicy clove scent. It is so beautiful. I loved it so much when it was available. I got the Comme des Garçons made a spectacular. I don't know if it's like on the black market or anything now. I don't know if they still make it. I haven't seen it in forever. Comme des Garçons used to make a carnation perfume, and it was bang on, pretty much bang on, a little bit more clovey than the original carnation, like missing a little bit of sweetness. But anyways, these peonies. Okay, here's a pro tip, guys. These peonies, spectacular. However, they shattered. So if you are doing flowers for business, this is pro tip. If you're not, then maybe this isn't as important, but still important to note, okay? So if you're planning for an arrangement and you're like, this one flower is a major centerpiece part of this arrangement, this is like the highlight of the arrangement, just know that most flowers have a tendency to shatter, especially peonies. And if that is the case, you have to either buy extra or buy enough that you can mitigate that risk. So basically you can buy another type of flower to use in place of that in case it does shatter, or you can buy enough, maybe even a different color, to offset the loss that happens. So that's basically what happened in this arrangement here. I bought 3 bunches for this arrangement. That's 15 stems, and all of them shattered. They were so beautiful, but they shattered. And if you're just the general public walking into a wholesale flower market, which that's a whole other conversation. But usually retail florists who have good relationships with their vendors, like myself, because I'm a regular, because I buy a lot of material from my vendors, and they know I'm not like trying to pull a fast one on them. If I say, hey, all of these peonies shattered, like, could you remedy that? Meaning, could you give me a credit, or could you replace them with something else? But by the time you make these arrangements, you will have run out of that flower. So again, in planning for a floral arrangement, just make sure you have enough. And if they die, perhaps try to get credit or get replacements, but that'll be after the fact. So when you're making arrangement, always make sure you have enough. Buy extra. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Don't like try to be chintzy and chintz out on your arrangement. Have extra. And also, if you're a retail florist, build that extra that you have to spend into your price. I talk about this in other videos. There's a contingency. Add a 10% contingency or more, depending on how much product you have to buy. So, going in, though they look very similar on camera, these were actually two different, slightly different hues of like a warm toned raspberry pink mauve color. This was so spectacular. Two different varieties here. Again, the entire recipe will be linked below for you. This is a double-sided arrangement. So the way that this is designed is meant to be seen front to back. This isn't necessarily about the flowers on the side of the arrangement. This is meant to have a forward-facing look to it so that it presents like a picture, if that makes sense. And now this black cornflower, you guys, I was freaking out. The way that the light was hitting this from my perspective, you can see the light coming in the opposite direction, just freaking out. Like holding these up to the light, the color that's coming through on these, vibrant, saturated, plum, purple, red, burgundy. It was like a plum rainbow. It was so nuanced and spectacular. I just really lost my shit with these black cornflowers. This is the finishing touch in this arrangement. I had such a blast making this springy Mother's Day arrangement. This was by far one of the busiest Mother's Days I've ever had, and I'm very grateful to everyone who supported my work. Thank you so much to Trent Reznor and Mary Queen Reznor, my biggest supporters. They really made this Mother's Day a bang on Mother's Day. So thank you guys so much. And then just a couple of these antique carnations, just kind of dotted around in prominent visibility so that it really just rounds out this arrangement, adds one little tiny texture to finish off this look. I am totally obsessed. I really hope that you enjoyed the making of this arrangement today, and let me know in the comments below if you are going to attempt making this arrangement. This is a large arrangement, and I'm finishing with finishing touch in my fine mist spray bottle. Those finishing touch bottles aren't that great, so I get this fine mist bottle, give it a vigorous shake, and away we go, finishing that arrangement with the mist. And here is the final look, you guys. What do you think? This is a huge arrangement. I think at completion it was about 30 inches cubed. Spectacular. Happy Mother's Day, happy spring. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.